And I don't know if you've seen some of the feedback I've seen online, Jim. People are absolutely loving your movie. Even Coach Rosie, who's with us as a part of our live studio audience this morning, says, I absolutely love Queen of the Ring. I took my wife on a date night and it was a magical evening. Wrestling fans, non wrestling fans, people are saying they dig Queen of the Ring.
Yeah. Oh, that's great feedback. I love that. Well, I'm proud of what we did. I read that book. If you want to understand my involvement, I read the book by Jeff Lean called Queen of the Ring. It's about Mildred Burke. I had met Mildred Burke with Leroy McGurk back in my rookie year, and she wasn't the sexy siren that she built her reputation on at that time. She was a little older, and she got jacked around by the National Wrestling Alliance. The NWA fucked her and took her money, and then they gave her no opportunities to book her women in the NWA shows, including Mildred. Mildred was a tremendous talent, and her story of a single mom. When your husband puts his son with you on the road, with the all intent and purposes of having sex, it gets to be a little salacious. Now, so Mildred had that scenario. Billy Wolf's son was servicing Mildred in the name of his dad, who took his penis and made sure he took care of the other girls. As Mae Young told me one time, Billy Wolf was hung, but he couldn't get hard. That's what Mae Young told me. So I don't know if that's true or not because I didn't experience it. It never was, but nonetheless, it was a great story. And Mildred survived. She worked through all that shit as a single mom, as a single woman in a man's world. And I can tell you from experience that the wrestlers back in the day were not kind to the women whatsoever. Anybody that says they were is a liar. They weren't there. I was there. I saw women dressing in janitor closets and in the hallway and things of that nature because the guys wouldn't give them an opportunity to dress in the locker room. It was terrible and embarrassing. But somehow, some way, she made it work. She just persistent and refused to quit. So that's kind of the story of this movie: is a single mom refusing to quit in a man's world, and so far so good. I think the movie's doing really well. And if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go take a peek because it's worth your time without a doubt. I got some good feedback from people that went to see the movie and liked it. There it is. Thanks, Bull. But that young lady right there had to learn to wrestle. She was playing the role of Mildred Burke. Look at those arms. She had to build. Those are not fake biceps. She had to make herself look like Mildred and take bumps. I talked to her before we started, and she was sore as hell. Every part of her body was sore because she wasn't used to the physicality that she experienced in the early going of the movie. But you'll notice in the movie she took her own bumps. I like the fact that some of the AEW women were involved. Camille had the role of Jim Byers, the big superhero that Mildred had to deal with, which was a great story. And of course, she had talents there that were like the Mae Young character. That was important because they put the Mae Young character side by side with Mildred as Mildred's enforcer or policeman, shall we say? And back in the day, there were a lot of policemen, but nobody screwed around with Mildred as long as Mae was hanging in. So it was good. I wish Mae had a bigger role. It was great. I enjoyed it. So I hope fans will take a chance, take an opportunity to go look with a Queen of the Ring. I think you won't be disappointed. And for historians, if you perceive that you're a historian or you like a documentary type scenario, this is it for you. It works out really well. So I hope you'll take a look at it.
By the way, if you're a Rotten Tomatoes fan, I recommend you even check out the reviews there. You'll see scores of 74 and 91. Critics who never like anything, 74% of it recommend Queen of the Ring. That's pretty
There,
doggone good.
yeah, I'll
And
take that.
amongst the actual attendees, fans, ticket paying customers who actually saw the movie, gave it a 91% approval rating. So, highly recommend Queen of the Ring in a theater near you. Be sure to go support this and check it out. It's good for wrestling, it's good for Jim, and it's dedicated to Jan Ross. So, if you're a wrestling fan
Yeah,
and you've got a non wrestling fan in your life, take them to see it. Check it out. You'll be glad you did.
I was very moved when Ash told me how he was going to do that and use Jan as a motivation. She was always my motivation, but she would have been very proud of this movie and very proud of the fact that she got recognized because she encouraged me wholeheartedly and strongly to share my thoughts on the book. So I read it again. So it's the only book in my life I've ever read twice, and so she got that was the motivation behind it. And then Ash Avildsen, Ash and I became friends over the years, and he was looking for some projects. I said, I got one for you. Let's make a movie of Queen of the Ring. So he worked it out with Jeff Lean, and Jeff, of course, gave it his approval. And so my idea came to life. Little did I know how much it came to life. But I'm very happy and proud of what we produced and what we put on tape or film. So it's a good story. And it's a true story. It's not a bullshit wrestling deal. It's a true story. And I think that's important to know that, you can still get involved and emotionally invested in a true story about a single mom who had this desire to become a star in pro wrestling, which the men dominated. You got to understand that the guys didn't want the women there. They had no desire to compete or be a teammate, so to speak, with the women. And when the women came in, like McGurk, I'll give you an example. In the mid Atlantic or Mid South Territory, when Leroy McGurk was running it, and Cowboy Bill Watts was helping before Watts bought in. The women would be booked, and when they were booked, let's say 4 of them were booked, that meant 4 of the guys, the regular guys, were off. And when you're off and didn't wrestle, you didn't make any money. And so the women got heat all automatically because of that situation. They were just off. So the underneath guys, preliminary guys, shall we say, were guys that stayed home and didn't make any money when the women were there because the women took their spot. It created heat unnecessarily, but that's how it was. And so the guys that were still in the locker room when the women got there were not waiting with open arms. It was a different ball game. So the women dressed wherever they could find a spot. Yeah, that was unfortunate to me. I just thought it was terrible. So, but anyway, that's what the guys. And I can understand the guys' point of view. There should have been a way to incorporate everybody on a card, make it a big super card type thing. But that wasn't a fact at that time. So, but anyway, I'm glad that this movie was made, and it showed you what somebody could do if they just didn't give up. And Mildred did not ever give up, and she kept wrestling. And some of the scenes are just awesome. The fact that one scene there, Conrad, I know you'll remember, where Mildred said she was the highest, biggest star in sports. She was. It was
a great scene. She's at like a political fundraiser of sorts, a little highfalutin affair, and maybe someone was sort of thumbing their nose at these wrestling people, and she is sort of remarking to one of those critics that I'm the highest paid female athlete.
Right.
And the bureaucrat says, in Washington? And Mildred corrects her and says, in history, which I thought was just a phenomenal answer.
I love that. That's great. That was a great response.
Yes.
But Mildred earned her spot.
Yes.
You know, the ticket sold by Mildred. It wasn't a fantasy. It wasn't a, you know, it was all real. She was a hell of an attraction, and she drew a lot of money. And she drew so much money that it got the attention of the guys. You know, if I was the guys and Mildred was on my card and Mildred helped sell a lot of more tickets, I'd be very happy. I'd take her to dinner or something, give her a hug, you know, at least. But Mildred was great in that respect. She did really well. And she was a nice lady, all business, but a nice lady. I think I met her once or twice. And she was still dealing with the men, and she wanted to get in the alliance. And the alliance wanted 10 grand, and so she gave them the 10 grand, and then they basically canceled her meeting with no refunds. They set her up. That was just horrible. So, but she somehow or another, she just kept persevering and surviving and moving forward. And for that, I always will admire her. And, you know, I love the double bicep pose, and I'm glad the United States Army used it back in the day. She was something special.